Okay, let's get ready for chapter 10. Remember to keep figurative language in your mind. Think about similes, metaphors, and even personification. Also, look to see where you can find characters growing. Okay, that's something you want to think about too, because when you notice and wonder, you should be looking at the characters and learning about them. Everything that we read gives us some insight into who these characters are. Remember, words, actions, things that the character does tells us something about them. Let's get started. We went to our beds early. If we had left the door open, we could have seen the sky still bright, with the sun just beginning to slide away in back of the cliffs. We didn't do that, though. We didn't want to see those poor black potatoes taken by the Sihi. We didn't want to smell what was left of them. Instead, we lay there with only the gleam from the s'mored fire, worrying. S'mored fire. Interesting word. Maybe something to look up. S'mored. S-M-O-O-R-E-D. Overhead, the hens were clucking on their rope. They made me think of Maggie. Long ago, she had strung that rope across the eaves for them to roost. The thing about hens, she had said, is that they argue every night, clucking away. They're trying to decide whether they should fly back to Norway, where they first came from. I remembered watching as she said, "Be kind to them, so they'll stay one more day and lay another egg or two for us." And now Celia was saying we'd be wringing their necks for 3 meals. There were 3 hens. So pretty soon they might need to kill the hens in order to have supper. I shuddered. "What about the eggs?" I asked. "We will close the door and go to Maggie in Brooklyn, New York," Celia said. "We will do that straight away." Horses clopping down the street, milk in pails, froth on top. "We will ask Sean Red to write us a letter," Celia said, "to tell Maggie that we're coming." I didn't say that Sean knew only letters, not words. And not all of the letters anyway. I cleared my throat. "What money will you use to send the letter?" I asked. And what to get us on a ship?" She sighed. Celia responded, "We will wait for Da. Yes, all we have to do is find food for each day. Maybe we could do that." The hens stopped their clucking. They were going to stay another day with us as well. My eyes wanted to close. "We will have eggs," I said. Next to me, Patch was almost asleep too. "Eggs, eggs, eggs," he whispered, and was still. "And we will eat just 1 meal every night," Celia said. "We can spend our time searching for food." I went to sleep at last and dreamed of Anna. I couldn't remember what it was, but in the morning I woke suddenly, my heart pounding and a sharp pain in my stomach. Celia dragged herself up across me and opened the door to let the hens out. I pulled the cover up over my nose. "Close the door, quickly," I said. "The smell is, oh!" I couldn't even think of a word. "Phosphor," Celia said. Phosphor. Disgusting, yes. I had to get up. I had to do something. "Ah!" Celia reached into Biddy's basket. "A nice brown egg for Patch." She smiled at him. "I will cook it for you this minute." I rolled out of the straw and onto my knees to say my morning prayers. I prayed that I would look out the door and the smell would be gone and the potatoes would be growing strong in the stony field. But I knew that wouldn't happen. "I will go to Anna's now," I told them as I stood up. Celia began to cry. We just have to hold on, all of us, she said through her tears. I turned back to her and put my arms around her. We will, I said, somehow. For a moment she cried even harder. Then she patted my cheeks. That tells me something. Celia's actions of breaking down and crying tells me that she who likes to be bossy is genuinely worried. She's concerned and like she's afraid they really are going to die. Okay, keep going. I went across the field, pictures of Da in my head, one after another, his blue eyes, the color of the sky over Maiden Bay, his arms strong, angling for a fish from the cliff top. He'd lean forward as he told stories about his first fishing trip, about meeting Mam with her curls tied back with a piece of string. I wanted him so much. I could almost feel his arms around us, and I reached out with my own arms. But instead of Da, Patch had come along in back of me, the bottom of his skirt dragging. He put one hand in mine and pointed with the other. "Sean Red there." I saw him too, going over the road with his brothers. They carried the karak over their heads so that only their legs showed beneath them. The karak is a boat. The karak looked like a great black beetle inching itself towards the sea. The karak looked like a great black beetle inching itself towards the sea. They're on their way to catch fish. I wondered if I could go with them someday. Would there be room? I'd work hard. I'd tell them if they'd give me a place and a bit of the catch to take home. But I wasn't good with the oars, and they knew it. "Nory," Patch tugged on my arm, "I have the hunger." "I know it," I said, "but you will be strong." I tried to think, strong as Kachulyan, the warrior. He shook his head hard. "I just want me nice potato." I bent down and rocked him. "Your eyes are leaking tears," I said. He tried to smile, looking down, his eyelashes long on his cheeks. "I am hungry too," I said, "but we won't think about that. We'll go to Anna's." "And she will give us milk from the cow?" I shook my head. "No, she needs her own milk." "Then why are we going there?" he asked. "I will help her," and I squeezed his hand. In the distance, the rocks glittered on the hills. It seemed as if a soft green cloth was stretched over them. I saw another world up there, clean and fresh-smelling, but with nothing to feed any of us. Patch pointed at a gannet flying up overhead, its neck reaching. He began the saying, "One to be sad." We waited for a second bird. "Two to be glad," I said. Patch was smiling. "Three to get married," he said, as the third bird caught up with the first two. And then we were at Anna's door. "Do you want me to milk the cow?" I called in. "I have milked my own cow." She came outside, shading her eyes against the sun. "Then what will I do?" She reached out, pointing to the fields. They will strip the land," she said. "Who?" I asked. "Everyone who's hungry." "I am hungry," Patch said. "I am very hungry." She went inside her house and was back a moment later with a small wooden bowl in her hand. It was half filled with milk. "Drink slowly," she told him. A tap of pain in back of my eyes milk almost yellow with cream. Pain behind your eyes. That all I could think is that I know sometimes when I want to cry, like when you get that instant moment to cry and you fight back the tears, it's almost like a sensation behind your eyes that like clenches inside there to make you start crying. I wonder if that's what she's trying to describe. So that's kind of what I imagine, that pain behind your eyes where you're about to cry looking at something that you want so bad. She tipped the bowl into Patch's mouth and he drank it all. She stared at me, knowing I wanted a bowl of it too, but knowing I wouldn't ask. "You're stronger than you think," she said. I put out my chin. "I'm not hungry anyways," I said, "but thank you for the milk for Patch." She nodded. "Come with me now. We will gather nettles and dandelion leaves." She nodded to herself. "Onions for insect bites, ivory for burns." With her cane in one hand and a basket in the other, she didn't even try to stay away from the clumps of mush on the ground, bits of black and brown with white spreading across. Pfeffer. We followed her to the cemetery first. We didn't have to tell Patch to stay away from the nettles. "They sting," he said. "They sting," he said, and waited at the edge of the small path. Anna had rags in her basket to wrap around our hands. I looked across at my mam's grave. She'd know what to do about potatoes and coins. "My husband's in there." Anna pointed her toe at a bit of ground. Anna had a husband? "My son with him," she said. "A little boy?" I must have said it aloud, because Anna shook her head. "A grown man, he was." How had I not known that? Maggie must have known, and Granda. Maybe I had never listened. A husband? A son? Anna was ahead of me, pulling the nettles carefully so they wouldn't sting. I followed her slowly and began to pull the nettles with her. I was hungry, so hungry. I thought about the potatoes we had gathered yesterday. Just get through this day without food, I told myself. Tonight Celia would have the potatoes bubbling in a pot, and we'd go to bed with our stomachs filled. I began to sing with Patch. Anna, still bent over the nettles, turned her head. It almost seemed as if she smiled. But that couldn't be. I had never seen Anna Donnelly smile. So which character did we learn a little bit more about in this chapter? I think that even that last little sentence tells me something, a hint maybe of something to come, or more insight to Anna. She's listening to Nory sing, and it almost seemed as if she smiled. Maybe she likes music. Maybe something about singing for her is a memory. I don't know, but it gives me some insight. It also shows me the conversation before that. Looks like Nory was really learning about Anna. So there's a little development there of a character. Excuse me. And we're discovering through Nory's discovery who Anna really is. Because Anna was kind of a mystery in the village, especially to the younger people. They think she's a witch. She saves who she wants to save. But do you think she saves who she wants to save with her medical concoctions? I don't think she chooses. I think it's just luck, sometimes. All right. Can't wait to hear what your notice and wonders were. I'm sure I gave you lots of hints, but maybe you found something else too. I can't wait. See you for the next chapter.